All right, so let me tell you about myself. I'm a carpenter by trade, and 32 years ago when I started, and then did the trade with my father. So our company name is Spannenberg and Son. It's on there. And so I'm not actually the son. My older brother was the son. I wasn't even. Yeah. Anyhow, that was so 1971. He started the business. So and then I started about 32 years ago. And so did carpentry trade. Went on to do my advanced certificate in building supervision. You go from one to the other, but it was just a small sort of operation. But eventually I sort of started taking over, and I would be on the job site at 7 o'clock in the morning and knock off at 3:30, come home, get washed up, and then it'd be off to work again, So I would be quoting at night, visiting clients. My father did the bookwork, that was before computers, so it was like, the ledgers, and he did all the accounts. Eventually I took over the business, and the first thing that I did, I ain't going to do any bookkeeping. The first thing I did is that, I've never even touched any bookkeeping. So as soon as he handed the business over to me, I employed a bookkeeper that day. And so I've never done it. And we did 6 months of MYOB, and then it was Xero, and I love Xero. Xero's fantastic. So we've sort of been doing that ever since. But I was insane. I was working crazy hours during the day on the tools, running the jobs, and then of a night time seeing clients, quoting, way too much quoting. And I thought I was invincible, but eventually I think I got heart palpitations or something like that, and then I thought, well, I've got to do something. And so then I contacted Kurt. So that was must have been 2016 or something like that, And so Kurt brought me on board, and the first thing that Kurt did was actually, and I remember this clearly, was to do a job description and detail, who does what and that sort of thing. So at that stage we were probably, just trying to think, I might have had maybe 3 employees and turning over, I can't remember now, maybe $1.2 million worth of work or something like that. So that's what we were doing then. And that's sort of gone from there. So I don't know, where do I lead from here?
So you've got, the reason you're up here is your situation's unique because you down in Campbelltown, right? But now you have offices in Monavale and then plans to open up a third set of offices up on the North Shore, like in the Hills District, right? The Bible Belt, as they call it. Yeah. So tell us a bit about that. What made you decide to expand out of Campbelltown?
So it was a sea change to start with. So some of this stuff sort of just happens, So, great business out there at Campbelltown, and we had some acreage and we're sort of operating out of the home. But then I had my yacht up at Newport, and so we're up there, and my wife and I, and we just let's just move, And so we just bought up at Avalon Beach on a whim, and moved up there. And of course that forced me to get an office in Campbelltown. So we've got a 400 metre square factory and whatever there, and it forced me to completely distance myself from the business. So the business at Campbelltown runs by itself. About a week ago, I decided, I'm going to just drive in the vehicle and drive out to Campbelltown and go visit a few jobs. So I just rocked up at the job there, one of our jobs. We use Builder Trend, so I just look in there, what jobs have we got on? I'll go and visit that job. And I rock up there, and this fellow walks out the front and says, can I help you? And I said, well, I'm a builder. And this guy had never met me. And he said, okay. And so then I said, well, yeah, I've just dropped in to have a look, and you want to show me around? So the client was showing me around. You guys are fantastic, doing a good job. There's probably half a dozen employees there working away. And it was just a great experience, but this client had never met me. So I don't meet a lot of my clients. Our jobs run successfully by themselves. So how do I do that? So we talk about systems and processes. We've been talking about software, and they're all key things. We talked about finance, they're all key things. But I think the business structure is very important. That's probably something that we don't talk about. So we specialise in renovations and additions. That's all we do. And how can we sell jobs, build jobs, and we're talking about renovations. We're talking about complex jobs. These are very complex. How can I have all of that happening without me even meeting a client? We're talking about from initial contact to the job being invoiced at the end and a happy client who's just been presented with a lovely handover gift, and they've done this great Google review. So all of that happens.
That would sound like a fairy tale to some people, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so the structure's important. So how do we do it? I've got a branch manager, and it's his job to oversee. Let's talk about my Campbelltown office, for instance. Scott's my branch manager there. He oversees the operations there. His job is to basically oversee what's going on there. He is mainly doing sales with the clients as his key things, but obviously supervising the staff. He's looking at the finances of the operations just there, and he organises the contracts, so he'll sign the contracts with the clients. He works with my admin. Obviously, my administrator is doing stuff as well, so she does that. And then we're a design and construct builder, so he will get the job right through from initial site consult and we charge for that. Quotation, we charge for that. And then he will get the job through council approval. We've got a draftsman in-house, concept design, council approval, get that through. Then he signs a contract with the client, and then once that contract's signed, it's handed over to our project manager. So I've got 2 project managers that work under Scott there, and it's their job, it's a project manager's job. Now, one of my guys has been with me for about 15 years, one of my project managers there. He's an ex-builder. He used to be a builder. He used to run his own building company.
Best employees, by the way.
Yeah, awesome.
Ex-business owner.
Yep. And so Nigel, it's his job, for instance, to liaise with the client from the initial, so once that contract's been signed, to organise the trades, schedule the materials, and then get the job right through to completion. Once it gets to completion, he'll then hand it back to Scott and say, righto, Scott, job's gone to completion, and Scott will then go and defect the job. So he'll go out there, meet with the client, he'll defect the job, and then we do the final account. And that's basically how the job works. So that's structure. That's your business structure that's going on there. So all of that has happened. Now, obviously, we've got software systems to back that up. We use Buildertrend. Sorry about the other guys, but we use Buildertrend. But that's what we use. And we use Xero. I love that. And so we are able to, at any time, or myself at any time, go in and find out where a job is, who's working there, live, and see where the cost of the job is up live, and basically we're able to then look at the job at the end and know exactly every cent has been allocated to that job. Probably a key thing, this is going back to structure, a key thing to keep in mind is that we talked about Nigel, who is the project manager. He is a site cost. He's not an overhead, and it's very important to differentiate between what is an overhead and what is a site cost. So Nigel, as a project manager, has to organise the trades, he orders the materials, checks that the quality's gone into the build, and so forth. So he is a site cost. Now, Nigel, he's probably on about 120 grand a year salary. I provide him a utility, I provide him a fuel card, all of that. So he costs me about $170,000 a year to employ Nigel to do his job. Now, and you're going, well, how do you apply that against a site cost? Well, essentially Nigel can supervise or project manage about $3 million worth of work per year. So I basically get $3 million and just divide his salary by that, and I'm able to work out a percentage to add into the cost of the job to cover his salary. So, and on my calculations, it works about 11%. So basically, I don't price the job. Scott's pricing those jobs there, but he will work out labour, materials, your home warranty insurance, and your site dunny, and the tipping, and he'll add all of that up, in the software, and then he's going to add 11% on top to cover the cost of Nigel in there. Right, now that's a job cost. That's before we've added markup and margin in there. So that's very important to cover the salary for Nigel in there. It's not an overhead. So, and of course we can talk about overheads in a sec.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So I'd recommend an hourly rate, weekly allocation, keeping timesheets. But obviously you've nailed it and you've run your numbers enough to get that number, that percentage. And the 3 mil plays 11%. So just want to point that out, to the guys that are working with me.
Yeah, so this is what works for us, you know what I mean? And you've got to understand that the type of projects that we do is very different. You know, so we will do jobs at $20,000 all the way up to $1.2 million. And here's the interesting thing, we talk about that structure, we've actually got the capacity to do that. We can do a sale on that and deliver a quality job quickly and with service right through from start to finish and deliver on that. Because a lot of guys will go, I'm not going to take on a 20 grand job, I'm going to do a $50,000 job. Well, some of those 50 grand jobs, we're putting a 50% margin on. You know, markup, we'll mark it up 50%. So, you know, we're making good money on some of those small jobs. So why wouldn't we do them? And we've got the capacity to do it because of the business structure that we've got in place. Now, I could look at that and go, well, because we love doing first floor editions. All my guys love doing first floor editions. And I could just do first floor editions because everybody loves them. We make a good amount of money on them and whatever. But we actually enjoy the service that we can offer to our clientele in doing those small jobs. And, you know, we just about to start one at St Ives, for instance, you know, $150,000 job. All we're doing is pulling a wall out, putting a kitchen in, a sliding door and a window. That's it, 150 grand. I think maybe the job's 160 grand. You know, but we'll make, you know, we've marked up that job 35% markup, you know, but we'll probably make 30% margin on it, you know. So, and you might go, oh, you know, we can do this U-Butte $2 million project, but it's going to drag on for 2 years. I could do 20 of those small jobs in that same time with a minimal risk. And as I said, it's about the structure. You know, and that was probably one of the key things.
You're not involved in those at any part of the process with those jobs, which is beautiful. So what I like is the beginning with the end in mind, the lifestyle, which is sailing your yacht, which you used to talk about a lot. You get involved in regattas and then going up to the Whitsundays and doing those sorts of things, right? So that was that was what was behind the decision to move to the beaches, right? The sea change.
Oh yeah.
Which is great. So you engineered your business to give you the lifestyle that you wanted, right?
Yep.
So that explains that one. What was the most difficult thing about launching your brand in a completely new part of Sydney? Because Monavale, very, very different to Campbelltown. For any of the Queenslanders or Victorians in the room, very different parts of, almost like could be in a different country.
Yeah. So what I've discovered about, look, I think what I've discovered is one of the key things, you know, because we're in retail, you know, we're so to speak, in that we're dealing directly with the public, and you've got to build, I suppose, rapport with the public almost, you know. So you want to have a relationship with the public, and it's in what we do. That's about winning jobs. So because we've been in business for over 50 years out southwest Sydney, it's a lot easier for us, you know. And we talked about job conversion. You know, we probably convert. You know, we talked about 75% conversion rate. We're probably doing that out there. Unfortunately, at the Northern Beaches, it's not near that because we're the new kid on the block. You know, I've only started there about 2 years ago doing that. So we've probably been winning 1 in 4, you know. So it's not ideal, but it's a case of trying to build brand. So it's about being part of the community. One of the key things that we do is setting an office up in place. So we've put an office in a main road, prominent with big signage over the top, and it's about cementing yourself in the community and saying, well, here we are. And then, you know, we've just started sponsoring the local kids club, which is the Mere Mariners, as part of the Royal Motor Yacht Club, sponsoring there. So we're getting into the community there, employing people who are part of the community, and that's sort of being part of that community. You know, we do invest in marketing. You know, whether it be I've got some ads going on the back of buses, you know, that sort of thing. You know, I invest in radio advertising. You know, Jamie over here heard me on the radio, so. You know, heard us on the radio. So, yeah, that was nice. It was like, oh, you heard me on the radio. So that's pretty cool. So, you know, and that takes time. You've got to invest in that for years for radio, but people hear you all the time. And so that's a worthwhile investment. So, yeah.
That was my next question, actually. What marketing channels that you have that you use, like Campbelltown versus Northern Beaches? And then what's your most successful marketing strategy right now? What's working the best for you?
Most successful marketing strategy is actually putting that office in place at Monavale.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So because you've just cemented yourself in the community, people see it. Now people I say and they say, "Oh, we saw your new office," you know.
Was that was the old surf shop right on the corner? Well, didn't Tom Carroll own that or run that surf shop?
Yeah. And we've actually it's had a mural there for 40 odd years. So this is about building rapport with the community. We redid the mural on the side. It's sort of been a bit neglected, so we redid it in this bright, colourful paint job, and again, it's the talk of the town. You know, so again, it's been about building yourself in that area. Now, we're still not where we are at Campbelltown. It's going to take time, and this is the other thing as well. It takes time in the market, even though I've sort of decided, because we moved up there, that was a sea change. I wasn't intending to do any work, but you know, eventually I saw all the building work going on. I thought, oh, I could do this, you know, and I suppose the sea change thing had probably worn off by then, you know. And,
plus you're a workaholic.
Yeah, I like work. You know, I work hard. So having said that, I only work 4 days a week. So my 5th day, every Friday, I teach scripture at the local primary school at Avalon Beach. So and because that's an important thing for me, and I love to do that. And so I don't have to work that long hours, but I do like work. I like our business, and so the other 4 days I work, and I don't think I'll ever retire. So.
Tell us about your team structure. You're talking about structure, your team, like on site. You've given us an idea of that, but in the office, what does that look like? And is there one central administration for for both areas?
Yeah, that's a good point. So, yes to one central administration in that, you know, we talked about site costs and then we talked about overheads. So keep in mind that, for instance, my salary and my administrator's salary or our bookkeeper and my branch managers are what we call an overhead. So they're not site costs. So it's important because we talked about the gross margin and the net margin. So that's an important thing, and this is all about that, getting that structure right. So the benefit is now I've built my business up to a point now where I can actually tack on extra businesses right throughout Sydney. So you know, we're aiming to turn out $6.2 million out of Campbelltown this year. Even though we're aiming for 5 million at the Northern Beaches, but it'll probably be 4. You know, so. And then Clara is a new venture. I'm actually just about to employ somebody as a branch manager, like I've been interviewing. I actually tried a year and a half ago, and you couldn't get anybody a year and a half ago. I actually put somebody on and sacked him because you couldn't get quality candidates. So I gave up for a year and a half, and then just put somebody on. Oh, we're just about to, you know. So we're sort of working on a business plan and looking at our marketing and that sort of thing. But I can tack on extra businesses right throughout Sydney. So my long-term plan is to have, and I've already mapped it out, my long-term plan is to have, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, maybe a dozen Spannenberg & Son offices right throughout Sydney, and they will have a manager, and it's because I've got the systems, the processes, the software, everything in place, it's very easy for me to now just basically tack an extra business on. If a business comes up for sale, I can actually buy that business and tack it on. So that's sort of where we're leading, but where I'm really leading is I've actually now franchised the business. So it's at a point now, and you know, I'm taking it slow with that regard because I'm being cautious, but I can now actually have the opportunity where if we've got another building business who wants to take on our branding, our systems and our processes, they can do that and they will run a successful, profitable business based on the model that we've done over 30 odd years, you know, so it's taken years to do this, so yeah.
Perfect. So you're, I've got a couple of questions. Your branch managers, general managers, branch managers, you're going to transition them over into franchisees or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, but it's certainly an option. So I want to give them the option, and this is part of why I've actually gone down this franchising path. I want to be able to offer an opportunity for all of my employees to, I suppose, move their way through the company. So my apprentices get a chance to become a carpenter. My carpenters, and they don't have to go somewhere else, my carpenters then get a chance to become a leading hand carpenter. And then they get to become a project manager, and then they can become a branch manager. They can even buy a Spannenberg & Son franchise and become a franchisee, so and they don't have to go.
There's a path for ownership.
Yes.
Basically, what you give, which is great because that keeps people with you, and then the peak performers are rise to the top.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So you said you're interviewing Clara, and then you stopped because you couldn't find a good candidate. What do you look for, like in a good candidate? How do you know someone's a good, like you go, yes, this is the person I'm looking for?
Well, I think you started off with this when you said about you can tell by looking at somebody's eyes, you know. So you know if somebody's smart and I haven't said that. I did put somebody on and have to let them off, but I was sort of a bit desperate, to be honest with you. I was sort of like, oh, I've got a plan, this is what I'm going to do, and I put an ad out there, and I've got all these candidates. Well, this is the best one, or he's not really the best one, so there's a lesson there. Just don't, if they're not right, just don't put them on. Having said that, you always hire slow and fire fast. That's the philosophy. Whether I followed that, I don't know. But, obviously that person needs to have leadership skills. You know, they don't have to have gone to university or whatever, but having said that, I do expect my branch managers to have done tertiary education in building, and the best ones have actually been carpenters. If they've been a carpenter and they've, so if you know, I know some of you guys might think, oh, you know, that might be not quite sound what I would think, but you know, for us in what we do, in our specialised fields, who've done a carpentry trade, experienced in home renovations and home additions, and they've done it to further studies, because I want them to have taken the initiative and done further studies. You know, James, who's running our Mona Vale office, he's done the advanced certificate in building supervision. He used to be a builder. And so, like myself, who's done the advanced certificate, but it shows that, that they're, I suppose, wanting to go that next step, and they've done that themselves. So, I mean, these guys have got, a degree of responsibility, and they needed areas on which they could improve, and I could identify, from my perspective, what those areas were. They were both different, and so, but I felt that they could benefit from some coaching. And and what better person than Kurt? He's the expert in the field. I thought, well, he's going to be able to do it better than me, and so and I sort of knew that that's going to advance, our company forward. And so any of our employees, we invest in them. We invest in team, we invest in all our employees, and that was part of. And you know what? When I put it to these guys, they were absolutely wrapped. Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, it's been interesting working with them because different mindset to a business owner, but I've seen a transition happening. Very positive, yeah. Let me see. So this is going throwback to this morning, talking about routines and habits from a leadership perspective. In 2020, out of nurture, one of your top 3 changes for 2020, when we were having a conversation at the end of 2019, was your morning routine. So tell us about that. Why did you have that in your top 3? And tell us about your morning routine. What's involved there?
Okay, so this might lead on to health. So this could, anyway, we can go down a rabbit warren here. But anyhow, let me tell you about my morning routine. So I get up at 5 o'clock of the morning. I'm always, I don't have an alarm clock, because I wake up at 4 and look at the alarm clock and go, oh, I can't get up yet. So I wait till 5 o'clock till I actually get up. And that's just because I'm a routine person, and just because, we've got to have good sleep habits and so forth. But, I am a morning person, but I wake up at 5 and I'm ready to go. When I'm looking at the clock at 6 o'clock, I can't ring them yet. That's sort of the sort of person that I am. But, we're not robots, and we don't. And so, for me, I spend time in the morning. I don't quickly, some people get up late, they quickly rush in the shower and they grab that sandwich on the way out and out the door. That's not for me. So I like to take it easy, and I have a life. And so my routine looks like this. I get up and I make my cup. I've got a coffee machine. Like a good quality coffee. That's very important. And then I spend some quiet time and I pray. So that's what I do. Now, Kurt's mentioned to me before about doing meditation. I know you've talked about that before. And meditation is very good, and I've done that before. It can be very good. But what I do is I pray. So I'm a Christian.
Very similar thing.
Praying
and meditation, similar thing.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So Kurt's going for the button here. I was like, there's a big bike coming in.
No, keep going.
Talking about health, and then there's a physical thing. So, I think I have my Weet-Bix and whatever, but I go for exercise, so that's important. And I don't go all out. I don't really enjoy exercise, but I know I have to do it. So I do some sets of push-ups and I go for a very brisk walk. not one of these little shuffles, that people do. You see people doing a shuffle. So I like to brisk walk, and it's got to be up a hill, and then I come back and I do another sets of push-ups, and that's enough to keep me fit. That's all I need, and even though I don't like it, I do feel good at the end. I know it's important, so I do that. Mental health. So my doctor has said to me that I need to go on a holiday every quarter. So I take every school holidays off. So, and I've got, my wife and we've got 2 boys, and so we'll go somewhere. But it's important to think about the type of holiday that you go on. Because, and I think, Kurt, you've mentioned this before as well, if you go on a holiday and hop in a plane and just go to a resort and just lie down on the deck and have a martini, I don't think that that's a very good holiday, because you're going to be sitting there and the phones are going to be ringing and you're going to be thinking about work. So, and my doctor's also reiterated this, go overseas. Go to a different country, so you're in a different culture and you've got all these things to look at and all this sort of stuff. I love sailing. So I've got a 42-foot yacht, and we'll go up the coast or down the coast, or I race as well, so I love yacht racing. But what's good about what I love about sailing is that, and rather than just motorboating, is when I'm out sailing, I'm watching the wind and I'm checking the sails and I'm making sure the anchor's good. And I even love yacht racing because you've got all the team camaraderie and you're concentrating on all that. So it's just you've got to keep your mind active, but on other things. Not sitting on a deck chair. Go and have a holiday, but it's a break from building and go and do something else, so, yeah.
Love it, man. What's been, if you can narrow it down, most difficult thing for you to overcome in your journey so far? And then the second part of the question, what are you most proud of achieving? What's been the biggest win?
Okay, hardest thing.
Could be like a mindset thing or...
No, look, I think the hardest thing is just sacking somebody. That's probably the hardest thing, but once you've done a few, it probably gets easier. So you have to, hire slow, fire fast. You've got to do it, and your team culture is probably one of the most important things. So if you've got any non-performer, dead wood or whatever, just find a way to sack them, basically. So, but yeah, be a little bit careful. I engage Employsure, who are like a consultancy type firm, and they're a bit expensive, but I tell you what, they always answer the phone, and if we've got any issues, they help me straight away, so you might want to consider that. And what was the next question?
Biggest win, what are you most proud of achieving?
Biggest win, I probably think, is to have a business that can actually survive without me. My business almost doesn't need me. I can, with all the structure, the systems and processes we've got in place. I just come back from a holiday. We just did the Kimberleys. So we talk about having good holidays. We flew to Darwin, wife and the kids, hopped on a 4-wheel drive bus thing. We camped every night, cooked on the fire every night. That was for 3 weeks. The phone doesn't work there. Had a ball. It's beautiful up there. And but yeah, the business operated perfectly without me while all that went on. Yep.
That's fantastic. What does the future hold? Like, what's your ultimate purpose, like, with your business?
Ultimate purpose? Yeah, right. Okay.
Why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? Okay, all right. Well, this might go a bit deep. So first of all, what I realise is you've got to work out who you are before you work out the why. So that's an important factor. I came to recognise, I suppose my personal characteristics and skills and whatever. I'm a natural leader. That's just, and I sort of come to recognise that I'm the person I am because that's who God made me. So that's what I see. And then you look at the why. Then you've got to recognise the why. And I actually had this wrong for a while because you tend to do things because it's who you are. And so I was naturally building the business or whatever because I was ambitious and whatever, because that's who I am. I was ambitious, I was a leader, and I built the business. And then I was like, but why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And so for me personally, you've heard about my faith. For me, I want to recognise God in what I do. So for me, deep down, I go, well, I do this for the glory of God. For others, it might be. I know guys who do it to get rich, and that's their deep down thing. They do it to get rich. So I shared a book with you recently of my friend Kobe. He just wrote a book, and he's successful business. He's just sold it for $20 million, and he had his family had a tough time when he was younger, and you'll see this with people like Frank Lowy and whatever. And so because they had a tough time when they're lower, they're like all out. I'm not going to let this happen. So they want to become rich, and so that's probably for deep down what motivated him. But yeah, that's what motivates me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Before you go, any questions? Any questions, guys, about any of that?
Where do you recruit? How do you recruit? Like what channels are you
Yep.
recruiting through? Because we've looked at a few. It's always interesting.
Yeah. So we had to let a staff member go last week, and so I was like, oh, we need a new staff member. So I saw that my admin and one of my staff had posted up on Facebook this morning, so we'll get something on Facebook. But Seek's good. Yep.
Cool. Was there another question? Yeah. Yeah.
He says, I think it was Nigel, he looks after about $3 million worth of work a year. So how many projects would that be in a year?
Our jobs average from 20 grand to 1.2 million, so it might be, he'll probably generally have about 3-4 projects on the go at any one time.